Hey y'all, it's Kim. So of course, with the whole Biden reemergence thing, Greg Gutfeld always has to have some kind of jokes. So let's watch this. I think he's pretty funny. He's got some good takes on a lot of this stuff. And with everything that's gone on over the last 4 freaking years because of Biden, you can't help but freaking laugh. Otherwise, you'd cry just thinking about all the crap he's done to the country and where we are with the immigration stuff and trying to get these people out of here. And you've got activist judges just going rogue, basically. Hopefully, that bill, I think it's HR 1526. Pretty much, it's supposed to get these judges back in line, but I don't know if it's past the Senate or if it even has to go to the Senate. But either way, we shouldn't have this problem in this country. If Trump said they're illegal, if Trump said that he wants these people deported and they are here illegally, he should be able to do that. Starting with the criminals, because I know, but if somebody gets swept up in it, you came here illegally, you've probably been living off the government and living here for years, you still should have had time to get your affairs in order. There's nothing we can do about that. If you self deport, they say you can actually have an opportunity to come back. If you don't, then that's on you. If they catch you, you may be banned for life. But if I were anybody if I were in those shoes, I would leave willingly and then come back the legal way. That way you learn something about the United States, you pay all your fees, you learn how to assimilate to our culture, at least learn something about us instead of just coming here and freeloading off the backs of Americans. But whatever. Let's see what Greg Gutfeld has to say about Biden's reemergence from the crypt, because that's basically what it is. He's back on a book tour. I think he was saying something about they was writing a book almost to counteract what these other lefties written books about him, because they all knew, they may not have known the full extent because he was kind of insulated while he was in the White House. But anyway, now they all feel free to speak out about Biden's cognitive decline. So here you go. Let's watch Greg Gutfeld tear this old man up and the rest of the crew on here.
You know who just stunk up the view?
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Biden joined The View this morning for the entire hour. The audience was caught off guard, but knew something was up when they saw a dozen Secret Service agents and 2 embalmers. There were a few awkward moments, though, when a confused Joe asked if he could bid on the showcase. But was he surprised Kamala lost?
I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen.
Hello, she was a crap candidate. She couldn't even tell us what her visions were because they were so bad policy-wise. She couldn't articulate anything. I showed y'all the other day the transcript when she was on 60 Minutes to have to fix it for her. And that's why Trump, I think, sued 60 Minutes because they lied about it. So, yeah, the lady was horrible. I'll let this play. I got to take the dog out. Of course, she's always got to go outside. So, hold on.
Quite a successful
and
candidate. Consistent campaign, undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, you lying sack of. It was mixed drinks, not mixed races.
Mixed drinks.
True, though, Joe may be demented, but I guess being a conniving, race-baiting loon is the last thing to go. Biden also trashed Trump, asking why he's going after people's health care.
Why is he going after people's health care and Social Security? Why is he doing that? What possible reason is that?
Oh, please. What possible reason?
Joe's obviously confused, but it was Worse during the break, when he kept calling Whoopi Regis. The Bidens also addressed his cognitive abilities.
Since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that.
The people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone.
You can look at his face and tell something's wrong. Hello, there's nothing there behind those eyes. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But she's just dragging him along. She wanted all that fame and fortune and to be able to stay in the White House. So ridiculous.
Reading his briefings, just working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop.
Right, Jill. And you're an actual doctor. Not one who got her degree off a box of Frosted Flakes. Finally, let's count the anyways.
What about this version? Joe, I don't like that. Well, anyway, I told you we were going to get any of that done. None of you would have thought it happened. Yeah. Not because negative. I mean, it was anyway. So when I got in the plane, I went to South Korea. I went to 8.2% federal tax.
Things.
Anyway, Secret Service. That's the benefit.
Yeah.
But it also means you're not. Anyway, I had a bad night. Yeah. And I had anyway. I don't quite get the anyway.
Hey, that was rough, but it was Joe's first stateside interview since leaving the White House. If you don't count the one with the funeral director.
Oh.
We're talking about predictable. Kamala saw the interview and said she wouldn't have done anything different. Larry, that was hard, but you know what? I have no sympathy for him because he may be cognitively a mess, but he's still able to race bait.
Yeah. I just watching this and thinking about it, I don't think anybody in the country really cares about what Joe Biden has to say on any subject at all. Yeah, I just don't think so. No, you're right. I'm serious. He is so much, yesterday's bad dream. Yes. I think I don't want to say anything about his wife. I don't know her. Kamala Harris is the same thing. Who cares what they have to say? Look where they left the country. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
And there are 100 reasons why Donald Trump is president and Joe Biden was defeated, or Kamala Harris was defeated, whatever. They can give him a book for $30 million or $50 million. Whatever house does that will be smirched and soil their reputation forever. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear this stuff again. It's embarrassing. It's cringeworthy. And he ought to just do us all a favor and stop. Just go stay on the beach. And he's got a nice house, and he got it off the government payroll. God knows how he got his money. And just leave us be, okay? Just leave us.
Well, James Comer and Jim Jordan did an investigation on that. And then I think James Comer has a book called All the President's Money, talking about Biden and the crime family. 10% for the big guy, remember.
This is day 2 of Biden's comeback, and we talked about it last night. Any new insights from tonight's?
It's day 2 of number 2. And Larry's absolutely right. Like, how did they make their money? Right. And, it's like they're hoping for a $30 million deal for his and hers tell-alls. And the only way they're going to make money on it is if she actually tells all. Right. And that's their banking on, because he can't remember anything. His brains are mush. But, if she actually gives the goods and talks about how much she hates Kamala Harris and what Nancy Pelosi really did and the actual contents of those conversations, hell, I would buy that book.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, guess what? Democrat progressives, to your point at the beginning of the show, they're illiterate.
Yeah.
They're not going to buy any of this absolute claptrap. And, I thought it was kind of sweet how they were sitting there holding hands. It's not because they're in love. It's because he doesn't want her shoving her hand up his bottom and moving his lips like a Muppet, which is what she did for 4 years.
It's funny. Whenever I get a book, I always look in the index to see if my name's in it. If you're gonna open up the book and you're just gonna see the word anyway, and it's gonna say like 1, 2, 3, 4, every single page. Tyrus, did you see Biden's face while she was talking? It was like, I don't know who this woman is.
No, that's, you know what? No, we're not doing this anymore. He want to go out there and run his mouth. He is fine. There's no dementia. There's nothing. He is fine. He's absolutely fine. He's just
yeah.
That's it. We're no longer, he's just stupid.
Yes.
So now he can be held accountable. Now you can take him and now he can explain. This is the problem. Like, since there's nothing wrong with him, he's just stupid and corrupt. So now, then the little thing we're waiting to hear about his interview where the man said that he couldn't stand trial. Well, that man was wrong.
Yeah.
He can be held accountable. So I think he pardoned everybody but himself. So we can start asking. That's what bothers me about these fake ass shows like The View. You got the guy on there and you didn't want to ask him once to explain to you how he thought a pardon for Fauci was a good idea because he couldn't answer it because this was all rehearsed. This was the final dress rehearsal of probably questions that were approved. He had his little cards for, and then when it was Jill's turn to talk, he fell asleep.
Yeah.
Because I know, because when I have to sit next to the missus and she talks a lot, I fall asleep.
Yeah.
And one of the moves you do, fellas, is while they're talking, you look down a lot.
Yeah.
And then when you start to go, you can do this.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here.
Oh my gosh, he was asleep at the wheel for sure. So anyway, boy, I tell ya. Oh yeah, let's look at this one too. It says the 5 Democrats distance themselves from Biden's media tour. Let's see what they've got to say on this one.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Pavlich, along with Rosanna Scotto, Harold Ford Jr., Joey Jones, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A New Jersey mayor arrested after he joined 3 Democratic members of Congress who broke into a New Jersey ICE facility that holds some of the very violent migrant offenders, including an MS-13 gang member. We'll fill you in on that later. But first, the man who destroyed the Democrats. Joe Biden's return to The View was a train wreck for a party that's desperate to move on. At one point, poor Joe was asked about his mental decline and needed Dr. Jill to swoop right in and save him like the Easter Bunny from the ladies of The View.
What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
You're wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. And so we went to work and we got it done. And, one of the things that well, I'm
well, and Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us. And they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. If you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
Oh, please.
Well, the left may be ready to move on, but the stench of Biden's failed 4 years in office still lingers in the air. But some say enough is enough. The Obama pod bros are going nuclear on Sleepy Joe.
He shouldn't have run for a second term. And when he did run for a second term, he should have stepped down much earlier after the debate. And his close advisors shouldn't have told him to run again, and they shouldn't have told him he was going to win.
This media tour is about Joe Biden. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about Joe Biden defending himself and his legacy. He's made it about himself.
Yeah,
and that I think was
these are low T men, by the way,
of his presidency. About
it's not something you're going to solve on The View, and so it's like step back. If you really truly believe that the work you did was good, then you have to trust history to judge it correctly.
So, Greg, the Bidens go on The View to basically gaslight and say everything was fine still, even though we watched and know it wasn't.
But these guys are talking about 2024. The mistake was 2020. The biggest mistake the Dems ever made was run that guy, picking him and letting himself expose the shallow and useless nature of their party. He will go down as the worst president in history.
Yes.
No question.
President
The party was already a mess, but they picked the worst possible person to front it. It's like Mattel making Casey Anthony their CEO, a disaster. And I think we're letting the media off too lightly. Right now, they're saying, and you can hear it with those guys, hey, it was the White House who kept us from knowing Joe was a mess, as if journalists were under house arrest. You know, it's like the mission of their job, which is actually to report. They can't do that anymore. They only tell the story, but they wouldn't let us.
Ugh.
So instead, they have $1 billion company behind them. They have all the tools needed to tell a story. But you know what? The White House would be upset with them if they did it. So they didn't. And that's on the White House's fault. No, you're a journalist. You're supposed to report things, not just tell stories based on your assumptions. It used to be if you told a reporter that you can't report on something, that would energize them to report on it. But now they've been reduced to stenographers. They don't chase a story. They tell a story, or they repurpose it from another story. This is actually the biggest political story of a generation, but they avoided it because they didn't want to feel ashamed about it. And I get how they want to move on. Who wouldn't? When a criminal is arrested, he'd love everyone to move on. But the criminal doesn't get to decide when you move on. We do. And again, this cover-up merits the kind of scrutiny that should have been there in the first place if the party had simply done the work at the start,
just go away.
Paid attention to the voters and not to the activists, stopped indulging the false promise of identity politics and actually looked outward at the world. They wouldn't be in this problem. They're still in this problem.
So Joey, I remember the Democrats doing everything they could to not have a primary process. They were keeping candidates off the ballot, using lawfare to go against RFK Jr. So the Obama aides trying to argue that it was just all Joe Biden and not the Democratic Party and the DNC doing this seems a little bit of a rewrite of history.
Yeah, that's what's so funny about them getting upset at David Hogg for running primary. It's like you've always had your thumb on the scale. That's your problem. That's why you don't have a deep bench, because you've gotten in between anyone who could. I mean, could you imagine someone taking the Democrat Party by storm the way Trump took the Republican Party by storm in 2016? The way it exists now, it probably couldn't happen. And most Republicans would sit there and say that's the best thing that ever happened to the party. It was the only thing that could have saved it from the Bush years and the fizzle out of the Tea Party. But as far as Biden coming back out there, I mean, I wonder if Trump sent him a gift basket or, this is the best thing that could happen. There are a lot of headlines right now. Pakistan and India, there's Ukraine and Russia. There are a lot of things that Democrats could pretend to be upset about and say that President Trump isn't doing well. But instead, their podcast and their biggest television show are talking about Biden.
Harold, I know that you have been a proponent of moving on from the Bidens for a long time. They were back this week. Your thoughts on them getting back on the national stage and telling this story this way?
It's good to be back around the table. I think you said it well. He lost the race. I think one of the reasons he's probably out these days is because Biden, that is, because the books are coming out and he wants to show that he was not out of it. He said when he ran in 2020, Greg, that he would be a transitional figure. That he wanted to beat Donald Trump and move the country to a new generation of leadership. And I think a lot of people took him at his word, and that didn't happen.
And he used hoaxes from Charlottesville, find people on both sides.
Happen. I think Democrats now, I wouldn't respond to him at all. I think that those guys out there with the podcast, they seem like they got a good thing going. I'd be talking about issues. I mean, what are the priorities of the Democratic Party? We're about to engage in a real debate around taxes. Who do we want to cut taxes for? How are we going to stimulate Main Street business growth? Who do we want to raise taxes on if we have to raise taxes to pay for these things? President Trump has talked about the need and perhaps the reasons behind taxing people who are earning multiples of millions of dollars a year to help pay down the debt and do the things we have to do to provide no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime. Those are the things that would be most useful to talk about if you're a Democrat. And if President Biden wants to continue to go on shows to help himself, I think one of the guys there at the end said this is all about Biden and not about anything else. Let him do that. That'll run its course. Let us go forward with a set of ideas and what our priorities are, laying it out for the country.
So, Rosanna, the Bidens are not the only problem brewing inside the Democratic Party. You also have a number of people on the far left, and you have James Carville, who sees himself as more of a centrist, telling them that they need to get out. Let's take a listen.
God, these people are just helpless. They cannot be helped. There's nothing you can do to help them. They don't want to be helped. And if they had any guts, they'd start their own political party and get out of ours. I'm sorry.
So he's specifically referring to people like Congressman Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's been campaigning with Bernie Sanders, may run for president. So they've got some big issues to work out.
They're still digesting the election. They still can't believe that the American public went in there at a time when their eggs were too high, their gas was too high, and they was watching their neighborhoods change with the influx of migrants. And so they don't know how to react to that. But the Bidens now, they're just trying to save their legacy. They're trying to get out in front of all these books that are going to drop in the next 2 weeks. Jake Tapper is defending his book, which I think is going to be pretty explosive. He said he spoke to 200 people who had a lot to
Jake
say.
Tapper. I said Joe Scarborough. I thought it was Jake Tapper. My apologies.
All Democrats. They're all Biden lovers. But that's not enough for Jill Biden. She thinks that you have to be in, I guess, her bedroom watching Joe work so hard while she read a book.
I think it's funny that the arsonists now, Joey, are the ones who are coming to save the day on this, saying, look at all these things that were happening that we never wanted to talk about until we could make money on books.
Yeah, and all the people that are saying that now were the ones that were gaslighting us.
Yeah.
That were telling us what we were seeing was not what we were really seeing.
Yeah,
kind of the same thing with the riots, mostly peaceful. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden was mostly sentient.
Not only that, he was running circles around his staff.
Yes.
So we'll see
he should have hired
stay on the
Kareem Jean-Pierre to go out and be a spokesperson.
I think she's done with him as well. So they're having a rough time keeping some friends.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click.
Just lies from that whole party. Well, we're supposed to believe anything that comes out of their mouths. Anyway, I just wanted to share those two. I thought that was pretty interesting. But I will probably try to get the Robert Hurt transcript, some of it up, because it's a lot of pages. But reading through it's going to be probably pretty hilarious. And I can't wait until they put up that video of the actual interview. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.